Better late than never. Barely. Oh, and this is the outro. All right, whatever. It's one of those mornings. I got it. Whatever. How's it going, Carl? How you doing?
Well, I'm kind of upset now because I'm supposed to be the guy who's half drunk and keeps fucking shit up. You're not supposed to be the guy who's 7 minutes late and runs the outro when the show starts.
Thanks for showing up, guys. I'll catch you later. I'm not drunk or hungover. I don't know what it is lately. We just had our throne speech in Canada, and our benevolent feminist leader decided that we're probably going to do some more lockdowns because, more people are, because of those damn teenagers are having parties in the park, stupid millennials.
I feel sorry for you. You're never going to get back into the gym, are you?
Dude, I just realized this is the longest stint without a gym since I was 17. 17, man.
Oof, that's rough. I mean, how are you coping with it?
I'm basically just doing, first it was just drinking and enjoying it. I'm like, whatever, I'll gain 5, lose 5, and then kind of carried on and then started jogging and tried body weight stuff. But I don't know, push-ups get boring after a while. So now I just, stick with the fasts, stick with the jogging once in a while. But then the girl caught Morton's neuroma, so she's got to get that dealt with. And I don't know, it's weird. She's younger than me by like almost a decade, but she's getting way more pains than I am way earlier on. It's so weird.
I guess genetics kick in, but I do like body weight. It's just like body weight gets so boring to me.
Yeah, it's not the same. There's something about it I just don't like. And I'm not one of those guys that just love seeing numbers go up on iron plates either.
And for me, it's more like variety thing. Like I bought this book. It would think it was convict conditioning or something. That's like a full body weight program.
Oh, okay.
And I could just never it's good as kind of like if you had an injury and you need to kind of work back up to lifting. Like I'm doing a lot of that now because of the fucking ankle I rolled. Because I can't really get back? Yeah, but it's still kind of fucking me up.
Oh, damn.
So I'm kind of doing a lot of body weight stuff and a lot of like various mobility shit for that ankle because I'm not able to get like a decent squat form with it, and I don't want to do like loaded squats with a fucked up ankle.
Yeah, that'd probably be smart. Or try piston squats. You're sitting on that one ankle, you bend it just the right way, hear that nice snap.
Yeah, and then boom.
Ooh, oh yeah, we got Drew here.
Yeah,
well, he agrees too. Convict conditioning is crap. I had a feeling when I first saw that. I remember seeing there was this guy had a video of him in the park doing like crazy gymnastic stuff off of like monkey bars and that. And I thought this reminds me too much of CrossFit.
I don't know, man. For me, it was more like just getting like a decent like full body thing going off body weight stuff. So just do something because I get kind of restless if I'm just sitting around all day.
Mm-hmm. Although we'll see. I know I'm not the only one either because there's a Good Life that just opened up, I think 2 weeks ago. And there's like 2-hour lineups outside of it every day. So it's like that's the only gym that I could possibly join, but they can't take any more clients because of COVID. And the ones that they got are basically so desperate for a workout that they're just lined up. It's amazing. It actually kind of makes me feel nice that not too many people are soy. At least they're trying to get to the gym, right?
It's kind of like the funny thing. Like I heard people line up for 2 things this week, a gym and like a PS5 launch.
Is that really a big deal?
Yeah, apparently. Like I thought we were kind of done with, lining up outside stores at midnight to get a first crack at it.
Especially for games. I mean, how many times do people get let down by pre-orders, standing outside and stuff? That's all I hear is people complaining about how nothing lives up to expectations. It was all a letdown, completely buggy first day, and yet they're still giving guys $100 before they even hear about the name of the thing.
Well, I do kind of hit on that with games, like not so much gaming consoles and shit, but more with like games itself. Because the way I'm sitting with it, like before we had like internet in every console and everyone was connected to the internet constantly, you kind of had to get your game to a working state before you sold it because you couldn't like patch shit in on launch day. But it seems like now the strategy is we'll just push this shit out and there's like a 4 gigabyte patch on launch day. So you just log in, pop the disc in, and then, oh yeah, you can't play for another 3 hours while we download the part of the game we didn't fucking finish.
I did notice that. That's the last AAA game I've ever bought was the Red Dead Redemption 2 when they did that. Like my girl bought it for me for Christmas. Thought it'd be a nice little gift. She's like, "You never buy games anymore," and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So she bought it. Then all right, I guess we can't play this one until tonight. Sat there for 4 hours, and then I watched a 40-minute movie while I held down the A button. I'm like, this is ridiculous. What happened? I miss when games used to be fun as opposed to gambling simulators and really crappy CG movies.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing I'm at with, like, I catch myself going back and playing like older games. Like I'm thinking of getting back into like the Tony Hawk series because I saw like Tony Hawk 1 and Tony Hawk 2 were up on the PS4 store.
Oh, okay. So 1990s.
Yeah, it's like 2000s. Like I kind of wish they had Tony Hawk 3 because that was 2002. That was kind of the peak of the series, but whatever. It'll come at some point.
Yeah. All right. So I guess on the topic here, we were doing, what is it called? Oblivious to
obsessive compulsive.
Oblivious to obsessive.
It was kind of inspired by the fact that I had one morning I was getting dressed for work and I had like a closet full of clothes and I was in that girl mood. Holy shit, I have nothing to wear. And it kind of gave me a flashback to back when I had like no fucking clue about how to dress. And you just throw any fucking shit on and go outside the door. Now it's like, well, you know, I could wear those pants, but none of that match with it. And those fabrics don't go together. And I can't really wear those shoes that go with that outfit because it's fucking cold. And I can't wear fucking slip-ons. And in the end, it was kind of like, okay, you know what? You're obsessing way too much about this. You don't even have a dress code currently at work because of COVID. So you could show up in your pajamas and no one would say shit because the other half of the people there are also in their fucking pajamas.
Well, that's the question. Why does anybody care if you don't have to? And I noticed that there's two types of people. There's the bathrobe and your underwear people, and then there's the people that still dress up, but it's like different than their normal dress. I kind of like the latter camp because I'm a big fan of routines, but I guess that's the obsessive part. Doesn't matter if I got nothing to do. I'm still showering and putting on clothes and maybe going so far as to iron a shirt if it's got buttons on it.
Yeah, like I don't go that far, but I think that might be like the old military thing kicking through. Some people find a lot of those habits hard to lose.
Yeah. Well, it's comforting. That's the thing. Like, haven't you noticed if you're in your underwear all day, I tend to be more lethargic than if I'm dressed. Does that make sense to you?
I can see that. I can see that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing as if you're working from home a lot and you're constantly walking around in sweatpants, you're not going to catch that creeping weight gain.
Yeah, actually, yeah, same. Yeah, buying crap in the house. So if you just have something that you can pick up and eat, you're going to just eat it. As opposed to if you have to cook everything in your house, you actually have to make a conscious decision on if you're hungry enough to make food or not. Getting dressed, same thing. If there's a quick errand you have to run, well, you can just quickly go and run it. If you're in your underwear, you're like, oh, do I really need to go get dog food today? Which I do, by the way. I totally forgot.
Well, I do have that because like I have like different stores, like the local one right by my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I'll walk down there unshowered in a pair of old raggedy workout shorts and a tank top just to buy some random shit. Because like I just don't care. But if I'm going to the fancy store, then I'll make okay, you know, I have to put actually on like real pants, real shoes, and have like a real shirt on, and at least I have to, you know, my hair can't be a total fucking disaster. Yeah. But the whole idea behind it is kind of like you define it as, you know, dialing the tism to 11. For me, it was more like guys who go from like they have no clue about something, and they go from 0 to 110 immediately. Like day one, they don't know that body language is a thing. They learn that body language is a thing, and by the end of it, they've gone through their entire photo album with a green marker and drawn lines to see where they made mistakes in their past relationships.
I know the one. You know what it reminds me of? Actually, it reminds me of remember when like I'm sure you've ever run into a 9-year-old sometime in your life, but where they just learned about dinosaurs or space, and then they just sit there and they start reading from memory every part of the book that they saw. Did you know that T-Rex had this? Yeah, and it's just like, you're like, kid, shut up. You're not the first guy who learned about dinosaurs. And then you want to correct him, but you're like, I'm just going to encourage him to say more and then argue with me. Well, Miss Hoover said, I don't care about Miss Hoover. It's a Simpsons reference, by the way, if you guys don't know.
So for me, that was kind of like the discussion, because I'm kind of seeing that, like, and that's why I love the Make Money Online bot. If you're not following that one, You should really throw that dude a follow. My favorite today, people ask me, what's the secret routine of Facebook ad specialists? Roll out of bed and chug some olive oil out of a beer bong and fall asleep by counting all the money the pay pigs send you. Now get it, young king. And the reason I love that one, and the reason why I love that one is just because it distills like the kind of obsessive compulsive, you always have to be grinding mindset.
Which is messed.
Yeah, it's kind of like a guy goes from not knowing you can make money online to being the next, like, I make 7 figures online the next week.
Which is ridiculous, too, because they're spinning their wheels. I don't care who you are. You can't do 16 hours of hustling every day, all day, and then expect to, like, be at all productive after, like, 3 days. It's just impossible.
Yeah, it's like someone said about John the other day, like, I was supposed to be on with John today, but he kind of forgot that his body needs sleep every 24 hours.
Yeah, and then it stops becoming, the obsessiveness stops becoming obsessiveness over the result you want. Like, it's not about making money. It's about being the guy who's the guy who makes money. And that's the part that kind of weirds me out about it, because then it's not, they're joining a clubhouse. They're not making money. They're not solving a problem. No. We're part of the cool kids club now. We're money Twitter. And then you're like, maybe it's because we're part of the sphere. And I'm like, I don't really want, like, do you want to be a part of this? I don't want to be part of this clubhouse. This clubhouse is autistic. This clubhouse is ridiculous. This clubhouse is a lying, fraudulent group of autistic men with daddy and mommy issues who married strippers and then hate Rolo. And I'm like, I don't think I want to be part of this clubhouse. It's pretty shitty.
Yeah, that is a fair point. And you kind of see the same thing with like guys who find game and they go from being the guy who hasn't been laid in 7 years to being the guy who's chasing pussy 18 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think is negative, because if you have to make like a huge change in your life, it's easier to kind of like just tough it out like the first 4 to 6 weeks of something just on pure like drive and determination, and then kind of chill afterwards. I always thought that was an easier method to deal with it. But it's if you carry that obsessive mindset with you constantly. So like you've been in the sphere for 8 years and you keep going on about hustling chicks every single day. I mean, the whole goal of doing something well and learning something well is so you can reduce the amount of time you spend on it, at least in my opinion.
Well, yeah, it's the efficiency thing. It's like riding a bike. You learn how to ride a bike, left pedal, right pedal, look left, look right, hit the little bingy thing if you don't want to get hit by a car. You're not doing that. So you're like, dude, I can count pedals twice as fast as you. You just want to get on your bike and go without having to think about it. And that's, like you said, it's the perfect analogy. And then once people equate it to riding a bike, they're like, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't brag about I've only leaned in 15 degrees today and talked to like 50 girls this year or something. It's a skill set. That's the hardest part. And I get it. Social media makes it hard because you kind of have to do the PT Barnum thing. So I get that. You get to do the red meat because nobody will listen to you unless you're, ostentatious and have a lot of bravado to you. But at some point you just kind of realize like it's outside of the theater, you're just trying to solve a problem. At the end of the day, you're just solving a problem. That's it. Oh, did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm just thinking about the point you made that it stops being about the process or the goal and the result you want, and it starts to be just about belonging to the people who are in that process and looking for that result.
Yeah. It's called the CrossFit syndrome.
Yeah, but that's a good point on that one. But for me, it becomes kind of, you're not going to get the results and you're not going to be able to get through the process because your entire identity becomes tied up in being part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and then anything that goes against it, you won't do.
Well, look at all the guys who have Sigma in their profile.
Oh yeah,
like the Sigma Club. Like there's a bigger Sigma Club than there is Alpha Club.
And you know why? It's because then you can lie to yourself saying that, I'm Alpha, just nobody knows it yet. I'm Alpha in secret, which isn't what it fucking means, but that's what they think.
That was that's why I thought it was funny, because if you know how Vox Day actually defines Sigma, there aren't supposed to be thousands of them.
I know. Just picturing a whole room of everybody just too cool for everybody. And the girl walking in, it's like, there's so much alpha in here, and her head just explodes. Yeah, ladies, that's how you do it. The Elliot Rogers of the world unite.
And it's kind of like the INTJ thing too in Myers-Briggs. It's like it's supposed to be like the most rare personality or the second most rare personality type.
Wait, which one? IMTJ?
INTJ and INFJ are supposed to be like the two most rare types. It's like 0.1% of the population or something by statistics. And like if you Google them, like everyone has one of those two in their fucking bio.
INTJ. Introverted. Oh, geez. Intuitive thinking and judging. Oh, so in other words, people are taking I'm shy and antisocial, and oh, this explains it. I'm just an INTJ. I'm not stunted. Oh,
Well,
dude, you nailed it. Nailed it.
It's like I'm emotionally stunted. I hate people. I think I'm smarter than everyone else, and I keep being obnoxious. So that explains it. It's just my personality type.
It's like a slut who swears she's a good girl. Oh, but I'm a good person. Okay. Good girls often do anal on the first date. I get it. Thanks. He gets it.
I don't know, man. Like it's like I remember saw like I think it was the Daily Mail or one of those British rags that had like this article by a girl who was like, my New Year's resolution for 2019 was to not suck any more dick. But 2 minutes after midnight, I had a dick in my mouth.
I'm gonna make that the quote. My comeback to Twitter tweet is gonna be that one. I swear to God. Which, by the way, when you did that, you'd like take a break every now and again. You're right. It's awesome. You just come back like once a week, and then you kind of take us 30 seconds, and you're all caught up on how stupid everybody still is and how weird the things still are, and you're like, all right, nothing's changed.
Well, I've just gotten to the point now where I just show up on Twitter when I actually feel like showing up on Twitter instead of feeling like, oh, you have to tweet like at least 10 times every day. Or you have to, because the guys who follow those things, like I have to tweet X times every day, they either end up watering down their content or they end up, repeating themselves ad nauseum.
You know, the funny thing on that, here's a funny one. So I was doing that. I remember. I don't want to say whose build your Twitter thing course it was, because it was stagnating for a while. So I'm like, I try them, and they're like, all right, so spread them out once an hour or 50 a day. And so I tried all this stuff, still kind of leeching followers. It was almost like I was George Bruno's account. Stop tweeting on the 8th. I'm like, I'll just take a month off. That Mr. Beast tweet is right. Can you just stop tweeting for a month? And then all of a sudden, it's like I get a notification on my phone. I've got like 500 extra followers this month for doing nothing. And I'm like, oh, I think I figured it out. Just go away. It's like your purge where you couldn't lose followers and you kept gaining them.
Yeah, I still have that kind of. It depends a lot because I'm starting to notice that I think there might be like an upper bound for followers given a certain set of content. Because my Twitter feed is kind of a shotgun feed. Yeah, it's not focused on like one topic. It's all kinds of different shit. And you kind of start to notice you have the people who will like go deep in with one topic and they'll just stick on that message. And those tend to kind of build up to a fairly high level. And then you have people who are kind of shotgunning it. And I think it's harder to actually push the latter account just because it's like Ed used to say, like, he'll gain like 1,000 followers from his motivational shit, and then he'll do like 6 coffee jokes and lose half of them.
Speaking of obsessive, yeah, that's this whole thing. And that's the 18th Twitter course on how to make your Twitter followings. There's another thing about obsessive where guys get, and I did it myself for like the first bit when I was into it. It's a very easy trap to fall into. You want to min-max everything in your life. And then you realize like, yeah, these like higher follower counts, it's weird too. I've had people find out I have 16,000 things, and it's like that's actually a point of impressing people. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like in real life, people, it's very strange. But you're right. Like all this obsessiveness over these metrics, you lose sight of the purpose of it. And I think that's tying it back to the topic. That's really what matters at the end of the day, is not losing sight of what you're actually here to do.
Well, for me, it was more like got to a point like when I started out, I wanted to treat it seriously,
Mm-hmm.
but then after all the various things that happened, it becomes kind of like treating Jackass seriously. It's like it's a bunch of guys getting hit in the nuts and drinking and eating disgusting shit. How can you take that seriously?
Yeah, I agree. Although they should have, because now what do they? Half of them have like kidney failure and bones. They can't walk right. What's that? Steve-O's 45, and he's basically like he makes who's the dude from the Rolling Stones that was always big on doing drugs?
Keith Richards.
Yeah, he's like Keith Richards. Stand aside. Let me show you how to truly beat the shit out of a body.
But for me, it was more like just treat this as entertainment. I do the same thing with this show and everything else I do. It's just like, this is my entertainment.
Yeah.
If it stops being fun, I just don't do it.
I agree. Same thing.
And for me, that's become a lot healthier than sitting there obsessing about metrics and seeing like, okay, I should tweet more like this or write more write more stuff like this. And instead of like, okay, I'll write whatever I want and I'll tweet whatever I want. And whatever followers I get, nice. Whatever followers I lose, well, I don't really like most of them anyway.
But to be fair, I do like when you get obsessive about things because you actually do data very well. And I think a lot of people don't give you any credit for this, which they really should. Especially like the day gamers, the day approach guys, those guys when they're talking about, all right, it's 6 approach, like they give you kind of fuzzy metrics. You're like, nope, 56 dates, 52 weeks. Here's the prime time of the day. Here's the stuff that's BS fluff in the date. Here's the core of it. Like you really do get down to the nitty gritty. And I know that's like the economics is kind of how you approach this whole thing. It really is fascinating, but I would prefer if you didn't, but if you do, you do it so well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, but it's kind of, for me, it's just I have kind of an obsessive compulsive personality in some respects, and that if something catches my interest, I'm very likely to drill down really deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point I realized, okay, I've wasted enough time on this. I should have stopped like 4 weeks ago, so fuck it.
You were that guy as a kid who took apart the stereo and tried to put it back together, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
I could smell your own. I remember that, except for I could never put it back together, so I just kept breaking stereos. That's when I had to learn my limits. Don't get too nitty-gritty, just broad strokes.
No, you have any idea how many computers I fucked up growing up just from trying to do random coding stuff?
Ooh, fair enough. Oh, that was back in the day where you could actually... Do you remember that that program you could make that could literally catch your computer on fire? Like you'd spin up the CD drive fast enough and burn out the motor. Thing would start smoking.
Yeah, this was back before they like child-proofed computers, so you could actually turn off your entire cooling system from from the command line interface.
Yeah. I kind of miss those days. It's got that don't eat paint thing from the 50s where they had to give lead paint warnings because kids kept eating it. But then that's the problem is that stupid kids stopped dying of lead poisoning. It's kind of the same thing with computers now. We made it too easy. And so the barrier to entry is so low that girls can like show their, asshole on TikTok and it's not a big deal.
I do think that's kind of the way things go, though, when your goal is mass appeal and mass market. I do think that's kind of one of the reasons why you've gotten that transition away from don't eat paint to if you don't, we'll just add something that tastes like shit. That way they won't eat it.
Accounting for the stupidity of a certain class of user. I'm sure there's a term for it too.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but it's probably a term for it. But I'm just seeing that with computers is one thing, but driving, you have like those distance sensors in cars now that will slow you down if you're not paying attention.
Oh, they don't just alert you anymore; they actually slow you down.
Yeah. You have those things when you're backing up that they beep like crazy if you're getting too close to something. Every kid now has to wear a helmet while biking. I mean, I just think we kind of removed all the things that kind of weeded the stupid out.
Yep. And and I know it's too, a lot of the Karen types really complain off. Like I'm girls on TikTok, so I hear it. It's just a giant Karen complaint. That whole app. I could see why Trump wants to ban it, but they always complain about this, this stuff, how we should do it. We need to save everybody. But then you end up with like a serious situation. In this case, I don't know, let's pick a pandemic that may be going on right now. And you notice the language of every elected official is basically to treat everybody like children. Like, I think that's why a lot of guys have a problem with it. At least that's why I do. It's because that you can't be tasked with taking care of your own safety on something basic like this. No, we have to enforce it on you. And it's like this weird childhood authoritarianism vibe to it, the whole thing.
Well, I think that's kind of been the trend, though, at least in the Western world, the kind of child-proofing of our society. And without going too dark, like the whole idea that, don't victim blame. Well, buddy, if you decided to, go hiking in a national forest wearing tennis shoes, jean shorts, and a tank top with no water, I'm kind of glad you died of hypothermia, man.
I was just thinking going in there with that Lady Gaga meat suit in the woods and then winding where he never came out. I don't know why I always have to go to the extreme examples. But yeah, you're 100% right.
Like if you decide to walk through like a bad neighborhood in town and everyone knows where they are, flashing a Rolex, you can't really blame them for robbing you.
Mm-hmm. Passing out behind a dumpster with your underwear around your ankles. Like, it sucks. Crime is bad. Like, we can all agree on that. But when things happen to you, when you basically goaded them into it, you can't. I don't know. There's a culpability there. And it's just missing. And there's no consequence to people doing the victim thing. Like, there's no. I could basically say anything you want about any kind of victimhood. And as long as you're sympathetic, then everybody will just coddle you. So it's kind of, we get what we fucking deserve, like the Joker. But what can you do but enjoy the decline? Like, I don't know how to turn this tide into something a little more responsible and adult-like. We're clearly being infantilized. Might as well just enjoy things until we end up living the movie Zardoz in real life. If you guys don't know that reference, by the way, look it up. It's pretty good. The movie.
I do think a lot of it is just driven by, let's say, a combination of bad incentives.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
Because corporations are driven towards making you more and more of a child by making things easier, because the more people can actually adopt your product, the more you'll sell your product.
Right.
And politicians ideally want you as stupid as possible because that makes you easy to lie to. It's like that old Trump quote, like, if I'm running for president, I'm going to run as a Republican because they're retarded and they believe anything Fox News tells them.
Did he actually say that?
I don't know. Some people say that, it's a fake quote, but goddamn if it's not accurate.
Oh, 100% isn't accurate.
Because it's like, if you get the people who are like, you're not going to believe what they're telling you, right? You have to look behind the curtain, and then they turn around and they believe all kinds of shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and everybody does that. It's like, yeah, everybody else is gullible except for me. I have the perfect amount of facts, and there's no way I'm being manipulated. I'm super smart. I went to college. I'm the first one in my family who went to college this year. You're like, it's almost that I prefer the people who are actually room temperature IQ, because they have the self-awareness to kind of know their limits. The actual like 120, the midwits, they're guys are in their head thinking how smart they are, and they're building this post hoc rationalization why their stupidity is enlightenment. And that's more insufferable than anything. And they're too smart to eat lead paint, but too stupid to be trusted with anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I remember back with I think it was Bill Hicks, who did a bit on that with like job titles. It's kind of like, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a product development engineer. Oh, I'm a marketing engineer. How about you, dude? I'm a garbage man. And just kind of getting back to like the simplest terms, because I think we have a way of fluffing ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
And we fluff people by giving them impressive titles or whatnot. You fluff people by giving them decent houses, nice cars, and by keeping them safe. But if you rely on the government to keep you safe, then what are you going to do if they're not there for a second?
Institutional trust. At the end of the day, that's what matters. Like the power grid, we can trust it's going to be on 100% of the time here. That's kind of a given. But I mean, people in the States are learning. Yeah, everybody had this absolute trust for the police, and how many weeks did that take for that to completely degrade into nothingness? 3, 4, maybe.
Yeah, but to be fair though, like, imagine if the police were airline pilots. If let's say 10% of airline pilots just smashed into the fucking ground, you're not going to have like the Airline Pilots Association being there. Yeah, we know, but there are just a few bad apples. The rest of our pilots are decent, because you never know what fucking pilot is flying your specific plane.
That's the thing. Yeah, we're holding people to different standards, and when you think about it, cops and politicians. They're the ones we should and bureaucrats. I think, was it you that did that? Yeah, it was your tweet where you talked about how bureaucrats are the very important job, because it's like they're there to make trust in the system. And if you get middle management bureaucrats screwing things up, then you don't trust the system. It's like an institutional failure based on, again, laziness and coddling. People are just, oh, I'm real sorry about that. It's like, yeah, you just spent $1 billion of taxpayer money. Yeah, I'm really sorry. It's like, sorry doesn't cut it. But apparently it does. We're not calling an election this year. I'm sorry, I'm going politics.
Yeah, it's fine. But I was thinking about the other thing. Like, imagine if like firefighters, like, yeah, I know. About 10% of our firefighters are arsonists, but the other guys are the good apples.
Oh, dude, heads would roll. I think there's an expectations thing with that, though. Like people are used to status quo. And this is coming from a Canadian. We're the status quo country. Because firefighters came out because they used to have private firefighters. They'd start fires to make money, and they would like not put out fires next door. And we kind of realized you had to have it. And it's your own property, so you want them to be switched on because there's like real consequences to it. But like, we'll take that stupid crap in America. 3 cities are having some situations right now. Meanwhile, the other 1,000 cities are sitting here arguing about it abstractly because they're not invested either way. So their incentive is just to signal each other. It's all about social signaling now. And that's why, and that's why you get that people watching the 2 movies on the same screen thing. Because they're all talking completely different sets of values and completely different social groups, just talking above each other.
And I think that kind of covers like part of the oblivious thing, because I think a lot of people are oblivious to those small things there, that you've actually gone from a kind of a social structure that's based on individual merits and the individuals upholding their part, to one where we're all kind of coddled by this system that's an abstraction to most of us. And when some people discover that, they go obsessive compulsive the other way, and then suddenly they're going to live off grid. They're going to have solar panels. They're going to have a small homestead. They're going to have a yard. They're just going to start canning their own fucking pickles.
Hashtagging QAnon in the works. I've said that, guys. Pickles aren't very calorie dense. You should pickle beets instead. Way better for you.
Yeah, but pickled beets aren't as good as, proper pickles.
And agree to disagree. But then again, you're probably Polish or something like that, so I'm doing sacrilege.
Well, I don't know. If you start to get into it, you just have to kind of see the obliviousness to the obsessive compulsive as being like a switch flipping. It's like someone noticing that, okay, I didn't actually notice this, and this had a very big negative effect on my life. So I'm going to obsess about it to avoid that ever happening again. Like, guys who get cheated on in relationships, for instance. Oh, yeah. And they become so obsessed in their next relationship. Like, they have her phone geotagged. They have her wear like one of those ankle bracelets that they put on criminals. They have her in a chastity belt.
And then she just leaves because it's like an anxiety-ridden nightmare.
The guy takes his girl to a club or something, and he just stands there in the corner just watching everything she does.
Oh, dude, I knew a guy like that. It was a firefighter on my ship. He was dating one of the bartenders there. Cool chick, super hot. But he would just go to the bar every day in like his best Bob Vila khakis and gingham cotton shirts and just sit at the corner and like slowly drink like club soda and that, like keeping an eye on her. It was the weirdest thing. Tall, attractive guy, but super insecure like that. Meanwhile, I just liked it because, I work with your boyfriend. She's like, here's some tequila shots. I'm like, this chick's awesome. Meanwhile, he's eyeballing me. He's like, yeah, he wants free tequila, or does he want in on that? I'm like, yeah, relax, man. I want free tequila. No girl is worth free tequila. I don't care who you are.
And it's kind of a hard topic to dive into because you kind of know all the examples of it, and it's kind of overlapping with the tism. At the same time, there's a different kind of nuance to it because it's the tism thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just basically taking something that's right and dialing it to 11 without any consideration of context or situation or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas this is more of a negative behavior that largely affect yourself. Like the
Agreed.
TISM 211 affects yourself too, but you're going to fuck it up for everyone else too. When you go obsessive compulsive, that's largely going to hit you unless you're already in a relationship or have people depend on you.
Yeah, for the
Like
most
you do
part.
have, like you have some people who are like obsessed about something. Like I remember I read a book on one of the early like explorers who had like a full family, but he was just miserable when he was with his family. So he just spent like ages on steamships going to India to trek through the jungle with the natives.
Hmm.
So that negatively affected his family, obviously. But for most of the guys that this is aimed at, it's more that it affects yourself in a negative manner because you become paralyzed by analyzing everything and focusing on the wrong things instead of focusing on the ultimate outcome that you're actually chasing.
Well, yeah, you're focusing on the identity. Like, perfect example, like a day gamer. I'm a day gamer. It's not I'm going to approach girls during the day. I'm learning to be more attractive. I'm learning to sleep with more women. I'm sleeping with more women. It's I'm a day gamer trademark. And then day gamers can talk to girls in the street and approach and like pick them up and have a same date. Like, what do they call that? Where you have an insta dates or same night lays. But if you're going to get shot down, then, oh no, day gamers don't get shot down. So you just kind of stop approaching. So you can still hold on to the day gamer title, have that obsessiveness about I follow everything. I literally measure girls leaning in. And as soon as it hits 15 degrees, I step away. And then they realize anything that they do that goes against that, like any failure, anything you may have to learn from, any obstacle, you just don't do that because that gets in the way of that identity as day gamer. And then you're right, it's for everything. Money, same thing. We talked about at the beginning, money Twitter guys. I'm going to hustle every day. And they're so busy hustling that they forget to get money, because if they hustle and it doesn't work, well, then they're not really hustling. They're just wasting time. So in a weird way, they don't want to succeed because the success and failure affects the identity. And I think that's ultimately where we're getting to with this point of obsessive compulsive and why it's detrimental and sabotaging ultimately.
Well, yeah, I'd like to make money online. Guys are like, what are you doing to make money? Well, I'm building my Twitter brand or my Instagram brand. Well, why are you focusing on that instead of making money?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, okay, if I just get like 40,000 followers here or 50,000 here, the money will come. And there are plenty of big accounts that aren't doing very well with monetization. Like I suck at monetization and I'm a fairly big Twitter account.
Yeah. And there's other ones that are super small. I know some that have like 500 followers that do very well for themselves. But it's like those 500 that they have are very loyal, I guess, customers. I don't know how to describe. I don't know how the relationship works, but they're basically like customers. All 500 of those guys will buy his book or whatever.
Well, it's that old thing with like 1,000 true fans.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 1,000 people that buy everything you put out, and you put out $100 worth of product every year, you'll still do pretty decently.
Oh, yeah, you'll do great. And that's
or
just
$50 or whatever. It just depends on how big. But I think that whole thing with you have to be in the millions, it always has to be bigger. I mean, if I could like choose the optimum like work to life ratio, I'd probably cut because I saw a study on it. That income above like 100 to 150K a year, you're not
even
really
that high. It was like 80. Although this is by Canada standards too, so.
Yeah, but let's say 100K a year, though, roughly.
All right, yeah, big number.
Just for the ease of it. Well, it's just the point. If you get that income, then I wouldn't spend more time to get more income. I'll cut back on, how much can I cut back on work and maintain that same income?
Yeah. Or like you said, hire a maid, hire a professional chef, get your food delivered. All the things that take, like you said, because time's more important. I 100% agree. Once bills are all covered and you got a small nest egg building, every dollar on top of that doesn't really have a purpose. Not really. Unless you want to upgrade your lifestyle, but how many people want to upgrade their lifestyle? I know girls do. And I don't feel like being a plow horse to buy a bigger house to fill it with more stuff in order to buy a bigger house to buy more stuff.
No, and it goes back to like, I know a lot of guys in finance who are kind of living that kind of, I would say, high life, life a lot of guys are aspiring to, but they're also like slowly building debt. And the second, you get some kind of crash, so they don't get their annual bonus, they're kind of fucked. Like I remember that back from 2008,
Yeah.
because I was on a couple of like big mailing lists with a couple of investment banks that shall not be named. And you
Okay.
won't believe how many Rolexes, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls Royces, and Aston Martins were being sold at fire sale prices when that financial crisis hit.
Ooh, so if I get another financial crisis, I can buy myself a Lambo and park it on Twitter. That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Then I'll be a true swinging dick. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised. I used to go to, my stepdad took me to like police auctions all the time. And it was all just confiscated stuff from either drug dealers or people that were like in debt and they had to come in and confiscate everything. Some of the stuff is just amazing, but a lot of it too was just crap. Like I wouldn't have wanted it even at fire sale prices. And I think I noticed this just a bit at the last time before I started doing this full time. The job I was at, it was the longest commute I've ever had. It was like in between 60 and 90 minutes a day. And I was like, never again. That's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I'd bring home a bunch of money. But because I was so stressed, the commute was so good, I had so little time, I ended up just spending all that money on carving back like a little bit of relaxation, like a coping. And I wonder how many people do that hustle past that demarcation line that you just talked about, the 100,000 or whatever. Earn that extra money, but 90% of that money you earned is just to allow you to function after having spent all that extra time hustling, you know?
Oh yeah, and commutes are a big thing there. Like I don't mind train commutes so much because you can actually work and rack up some billable hours on a
Yeah.
train.
Yeah, or you
It's
can
much
relax,
harder if
read
you
a book,
actually
you can do whatever you want. It's your time.
if you have to drive, it's a completely different beast.
Mm-hmm. Which I
Because
still don't get
okay,
why
you can
people
list,
don't like trains and subways. I think that was my favorite.
yeah, because you just walk in there. You don't have to think how much did I drink last night. You can just walk on and you get to where you're going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're usually air conditioned. They're usually comfortable. There's no honking. There's no anger. Most of the time, people just ignore everybody else anyway. At the very least, you'll see one crackhead in there that you may have to keep an eye out for, but that's so rare. It's almost like nice for the novelty to watch some guy, peeing his pants in front of you guys, yelling about something, yelling about the rapture.
Plus, like my favorite thing about like the early morning commutes, especially on if you're having to go in on a weekend,
Mm-hmm.
watching all the women coming and doing the walk of shame, man.
Oh, I miss those. Those were nice. Trying to watching a girl salvage her dignity in real time. Yeah. The hair sort of combed. The heels are in her purse, and it's that spare. You ever see those like? They're these shoes. They're like rubber, and they're essentially just like overshoes, but for a girl's feet when they're tired of walking in heels. And they have them like purse shoes. When you see them wearing the purse shoes, I love that whole thing.
Your makeup is still kind of smeared. You realize you didn't shower before bailing out of there.
Yeah. Oh, the whole thing. I used to love it. No eye contact to anybody. It's just put the blinders on. Nothing else exists in my world. I just need to get home and start feeding my cats again.
Just need to get home and get to come.
Yeah, barracks had those too, man. When the reservists would come back and they do their walk of shame, but they got to walk past like the duty watch desk. And if you had to watch duty watch there, it was literally to sit back seat. You watch every guy who struck out that night walk back and try to pretend like he's not going into his room to go jerk off. And then every girl walking back because she just got railed a bunch trying to pretend like she's not a hoe. Oh, man. That was my favorite time of my early military career. You bringing me back, Carl. You're bringing me back.
Well, at least now, like if you're coming home and you struck out all night, at least you can watch Red Evening now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Guys, check that one out. That's Jack Napier in there. And I think he gets robbed, Masculine Geek guys. I feel bad, though. Like, I don't stay up till midnight. I stay up till like 10. And I don't think that makes me a boomer. I think the boomers are up till 3 in the morning now because they got nothing else to do. It's all the millennials and younger. Like, yeah, we got to get to bed at 9. Start hustling the next day,
Yeah, make sure you eat that organic, low-carb shit.
Organic, low-carb rice, a.k.a. water. I guess bringing this back. So we're talking about obsessive, OCD. And I don't know. I'm surprised you didn't catch this. I'm sure you know, but when I talk about dialing up the tism, that's essentially me just using the, and I suck at Latin, the reductio ad absurdum. Is that how you pronounce it?
Reductio ad absurdum.
Yeah, reductio ad absurdum. Yeah, reducing things to like absurdity. And that's But I'm like, if I say that, first off, it sounds pretentious. Secondly, I screw up the pronunciation. And thirdly, I don't want people to have to look up things when I talk about them. So spotitism just worked better. But you are right. It's different than being obsessive. That's like, I would say that's closer to addiction than it is to reducing to absurdity.
Well, I think obsession is a good thing, like ultimately, as long as you're aware of what you're doing.
But yeah, well-directed obsession.
Because I think the difference between obsessive and obsessive compulsive is that you don't have control if it's compulsive.
Mm-hmm.
Just being obsessive, like being the guy who, let's say you're planning on doing like a hike that requires you be in peak physical condition in 6 months.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense for you to be a bit obsessive about getting all your workouts in, eating relatively clean, staying hydrated, getting enough sleep.
Getting all your tasks done before vacation.
Because like you have a goal in 6 months that you're trying to hit. So being kind of obsessive about the things that lead to that goal makes sense. The compulsive part come in when you accomplish that goal, and instead of stopping and dialing it back to a normal level, you just keep going for no reason.
Yeah. Sweatshops guys are just as obsessive about their task as the guy who's an entrepreneur. The difference is because the sweat task people need to feed their family, and they got no choice in the matter. Actually, that's a bad reference. Think about the guys who go on vacation and then pack their vacation with activities from dawn till dusk. I think that's a closer one. It's like you're missing the point, man.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's one of those things I never understood that people who kind of plan and pack their vacations that full. That just to me says they have to keep busy because there's something they don't want to think about.
Ooh, that's a good way of looking at it. I never thought of it that way. And it kind of makes sense. Yeah, it does. Because you can't be, maybe they're the fidgeting types that constantly have to move, like the guys who, when you're sitting there, they always have to tap their knee on the thing and it drives you nuts when you're trying to have a meeting. But I never thought about that. Like it's something avoiding. Same as like the video game guys where it's just about escapism as opposed to enjoying yourself for a bit. It's always trying to avoid something or weed or drinking. Just never noticed it could have been part of something, like this. But that's hard to explain to people because it doesn't sell as well as, dude, you got to be hustling 24/7. If you're not doing that, what kind of man are you? A real man, drives his woman everywhere and cleans the house and does all the chores and then blah, blah, blah. And I find it annoying, frankly. From a survival standpoint, we're very lazy creatures. It's kind of like our pro and our con. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when I talk about our mental models, there's a reason that until you're zeroed out, you never change. You can have a horrible, crappy relationship for 20 years and put up with it because your body is so used to a certain level of comfort. Unless it's physically hurting you or emotionally scarring you, your body won't snap to and try and change it. So I can see obsessiveness filling that same role, being completely obsessive about something because there's no negative consequence to come. There's no positive consequence. So you end up just caught in this weird rut where things are 5 out of 10 good enough.
Well,
but then I'm thinking like that's how I get to 10 out of 10 is by doing this 5 out of 10 rut of obsessiveness. Completely counterproductive.
I jumped in on it because Drew is kind of dominating our chat now with giving all the guys free workout advice. And he had one that was good here. Is like one work set is enough if done properly. More makes little to no difference. It can even be counterproductive in many cases. And how often have you seen, like I've seen more guys fuck up in the gym because they're doing too much than too little. Because there seems to be like this ingrained thing in us that if we're doing a good thing, doing more of it is going to be even better.
Remember that American talk we had about, hey, you know what's great? Donuts and bacon. You know what's really great? 15 donuts full of bacon. Slather some cheese on it. I think you quoted. I can't remember exactly. But it was like the American idea of whatever's good, put 10 times as much of it on your food.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of that's what it comes back to. It's that obsessive compulsive thing. It's just that I'm not going, and I've had this in spades during different parts of my life. Or
yeah, we all do.
Like if I fuck this up, it's not going to be because I did too little work. And in the end, you just end up robbing yourself of sleep, and a lot of the time, you kind of lose sight of why you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew a guy who did, I think he did a law degree and an econ degree at the same time as he was working, and he had a side job. And fair enough, the guy managed to get through it in like the allotted time for 1 degree.
Yeah.
But then he had to go to a psych ward for about 3 months just to kind of catch up on sleep.
Did he end up using it at least?
Yeah, he ended up having a great career because that kind of work ethic and that kind of determination is always going to be a benefit to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that
it's not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable. And if you're not aware that it's not sustainable, you end up fucking yourself up.
Yeah. No, I can see that. It's funny. I was thinking back to your workout thing too. I can't remember where I was reading it from, but it was like a research paper talking about how during your workout, and it changed my perspective on it. The only part of your workout that works is like those final 2 reps. Like everything else is just a way to tire your muscles enough to get in that window where your work is actually effective. So I can see what he's talking about, where the one exercise done well enough is good enough. But I think that comes back to the obsessiveness of it. People are obsessing so much on the process, and the process is generally good, that they forget 90% of the process of achieving anything is mostly prep work, admin work. It's not high return, but there's that small 10%. That's like the clutch moments when a game studio has to get something out in 2 weeks, or when for money examples, writing the book. It's a low cost admin activity to do it, but then putting the book out in that first week of marketing is where 90% of your revenue comes in. But then the marketing for the rest of the book's life is not going to be, or a YouTube video, or just about like a contract. I was going to say a contract, but I think you could speak better to that than me. Where there's like certain points where you have to be obsessive, but 90% of the time it's just really not necessary, and you're just spinning your wheels.
It's kind of funny because we're going to build to like minimize our calorie expenditure or our energy expenditure. But when you go obsessive compulsive, you kind of stop paying attention to that.
Can you give me an example? I'm kind of curious. You're losing me.
Well, it was just like people who climb Everest is a good example.
Okay.
When you do that last summit push, you burn 15,000 calories.
Jesus.
Going up and down in the span of about 18 hours. And you wouldn't no one would do that unless it was a life or death thing. Really. Because like you're not going to push up through a mountain pass in the middle of winter walking just because you want to, unless you have way too much and you have it way too good, and you have to kind of manufacture these challenges so you can feel danger, you can feel like you're completely burned out.
The coldest of showers.
Yeah, it's similar.
No, I see that. Yeah, I just don't understand why we have to constantly try and regress back to the way things used to be. Because that's essentially it. We want to go back to hunter-gatherer when life was dangerous and manufacture it, as opposed to just learning to adapt to a life of, I think what do they call it, a life of ignoble ease. There's not going to be any danger anymore. Military for 12 years. I had 3 people die that I knew while I was there. 1 suicide, and then the 2 of them got drunk and had an accident. So technically, alcohol is more dangerous to sailors than enemy action.
I can kind of buy that one, though.
Yeah. Same thing with the States. Wasn't that the numbers coming out of the Iraq War? Was that equipment failure and suicide number 1 and 2, and like fighting Iraqis was like number 4 on the list? I think heart attacks were number 3.
Well, I can kind of buy that one. Because, you know what killed the most people during World War I?
What's that?
Spanish flu.
Yeah, that is funny when you think about it. But all this danger stuff, and the dangerous stuff wasn't really as dangerous as we remember, but it felt dangerous. Being deployed, hearing like that beep coming from a missile lock of Iran on the Straits of Hormuz, that felt dangerous. Wasn't really dangerous because, Iran would have been glassed in 30 minutes. They were just rattling sabers. Yeah, but really the dangerous part was going into Dubai and not being drunk in the desert when it's 45 degrees.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, did you buy the book I sent you last week?
No, I haven't yet, but I got it on my list.
Because one of the funnier observations from that one is that most people who end up in a legit life or death decision don't realize that they're in one until it's too late.
Ooh. Well, I'm gonna have to check it out then. That's kind of got me curious about it.
And the reason why I found that funny is that you always think that when you hit something that's dangerous, where you face adversity, where you kind of get to test your mettle, you'll know that you're being tested. Turns out you're not.
Yeah, I buy that. Thinking back, I'm like, actually, that maps very well to every like super hardship I've had in my life, every big decision. Never thought of it like this is it, man.
No, you just afterwards you're like, okay, that was kind of fucked up.
But yeah, afterwards, always afterwards. You're right. Thank, by the way, Mark Daniels, $5 super chat. Social media, more is better. One more rep, no days off, etc., etc. The joy is in the journey, not the goal. I agree with that too. That's kind of a different thing. Like if you can't be obsessive about, I don't know, let's use game on this one, like picking up girls, day game, night game, whatever. You kind of have to enjoy the process or you burn out. And he's right. Once you get it at that healthy zone, that's great. But then when you start getting obsessive, like you're talking about here, then it kind of gets bad. So it's all about calibration at the end of the day. You have to, like, how much is enough? And then how much is too much? Is that Greek saying nothing too much?
Why do you always ask me about the Greek shit?
Because you're the one that reads all the fancy books and you're very smart. I've read Nietzsche. I just don't quote it because I'm not an idiot. And I'm like, all right, when it comes to anything older than 1940, I'm asking Carl.
Fair enough. But no, and we have this thing with alcoholism. You have this thing with video game addiction, gambling addiction. No one ever really talks about like addictions that are perceived as being positive. Like coffee would be a drug and would probably be illegal if it was invented today. And our entire corporate societal structure wasn't dependent on people getting at least 4 cups of coffee and to get through a workday.
I blame Lloyd's for that. They made the Scottish Enlightenment once the Brits realized, hey, if I drink coffee instead of beer, I can invent things. That was it. Turning point. Coffee became cool then. People stopped using cocaine and getting treated for hysteria and started drinking coffee.
I do kind of like the idea of cocaine being free to use. That would speed things up.
Well, didn't it used to be like speed, meth, and cocaine were like just things that you had? You gave it to your kids if they had a cold, and you're a kid, have some speed. Thanks, Mom.
Well, to be fair though, speed was like sold to women as a weight loss drug back in like the 60s.
And it was sort of, I guess.
So everyone who thinks that like Breaking Bad was so cool and Heisenberg was so awesome, he was just selling girls weight loss drugs, which kind of makes me even more awesome.
He's saving the world from fatties, one drug at a time. Yeah, and that's off topic, but I know that's the one thing I think of whenever I hear the trad types talk about going to the way things used to be, going back to a golden age. I'm like, did you ever actually read up on this golden age? People were obsessive, like alcoholics everywhere. Everybody was chain smoking for the nicotine fix. Speed was a big thing. People were drinking and taking pills together because they were so bored now that the dishwasher's working. Anybody who had a hard labor job had arthritis so bad in their 70s that they couldn't even beat their wives anymore. I'm like, why would you want to go back to that? Because there's a fancy advertisement for cigarettes that looks really nice because you're at a barbecue together. Like, what is wrong with you people? And it only works because everybody's ignorant to history.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of like the big point of things. I think the main thing you need to be happy is to be ignorant.
Oh, it's kind of making me actually sad. I'm like, you're kind of right.
Well, just on the basis that, like, if you can sit there and dream, like, oh, yeah, the Victorian age was so great. Well, not if you were being killed in India, we're laying in an opium den in Hong Kong.
Allergic to borax.
If you had polio or syphilis, and there was no penicillin.
Yeah, you don't even have to go that high. They used to put borax in the milk to get rid of that rancid smell when milk went sour. They used to put it in bread because it made it whiter. How about you used to have to eat borax because your wife wanted to flex on the other wives in the area how she could buy the fancy white bread. Think about that.
I did not know that. That's actually interesting.
Yeah. Alum and borax were like food additives back then, which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, like the 50s were great. There was asbestos everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Asbestos. I forgot about that one. Lead gas. Apparently that one. I don't know. You've read Freakonomics, I assume. You know their argument that crime dropped mostly because they got rid of lead paint and people stopped going crazy off of it. It's a compelling case. I don't know if it's right or not, but it was an interesting.
Yeah, it's a kind of a compelling argument, but that kind of makes me wonder what the fuck is fueling this obsessive compulsive epidemic? Is it just that people have too much Ritalin?
It could be Ritalin. It could be sugar crashing. Maybe it's an insulin thing. I'd be surprised. You find out there's like a hormone attached to obsessive behavior, and for some reason, corn, soy, and high fructose corn syrup like spark it just perfectly.
Yeah, but if that's the case, how come the low carb guys are such obsessive cunts?
I think low carb guys are low carb in the same way that gluten intolerant people are actually gluten intolerant. It turns out the amount of gluten intolerance you can have is directly proportional to how many people can see you while you're eating. If nobody's watching you, it goes away. If everybody's around you, then you have to preach to the world how that gluten will kill you.
Yeah, it's the same thing with, like, I have a couple of friends who eat halal, but only if other people who eat halal are around them.
Dude, back in the day, those were the guys that always went out to the smoking pit but never had cigarettes. They always had to bum smokes.
No, I just thought it was really funny because I have a buddy and like he comes over to watch like UFC fights and shit, and then we usually order like pizza and have beers. And then one time we were watching a fight, and I invited a workmate of mine who's also a Muslim. And that was the one time when he was like, "We can't have beer. Do you have any soda? Can we like order something, a pizza with no ham or bacon or pepperoni on it?" And the other guy was like, "Chill out. I like pepperoni too."
Dude, that's such like a chick thing. Like, oh my God, Cindy's come over. We got to clean the house. I can't have her know that I'm a slob. Good job on the other guy though with Alec Rody. That's my mask policy now, where every time I get with somebody, I kind of drop the subject of like, this is ridiculous. I'd rather catch the virus and see if they're kind of anti-mask, but just don't want to get on a TikTok video having the cops tase them. They're like, yeah, I'm sick of this stuff too. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was the only one. And I want to like encourage more people to like openly say they're sick of this, so that way we can start doing some proper policies. It's my little way of beating the system here, because I don't want to get tased. I really don't.
But I mean, to me though, the biggest thing with like oblivious and obsessive compulsive, just to bring it a little bit back from what Christian was asking, is being a foodie bad? And I don't think so. Like, I'm pretty big on food myself, and it's just one of those things where I used to be kind of oblivious about like the health implications of food.
Yeah.
Which lended itself to eating in a way that could be described as somewhat excessive. And then I kind of realized that this is not working well. So I went obsessive compulsive the other way and was like, okay, I'm just going to stick with low carb, nothing but, pure meats, pure vegetables. And then I kind of went like low carb / cheat, where you're like, okay, I can make low carb cheesecake. I can make low carb brownies. And then I just got to the point, well, if I eat reasonably healthy, like 5, maybe 6 days a week, that's the other day or two isn't going to matter that much. And I think for the most part, that's true. Like, it doesn't matter if you go out drinking twice a week, if you don't like drink heavily the other 5. But you can't be like, oh yeah, I'm eating healthy 6 days a week, and then you go on like a 2-week cocaine bender with mixed 50-50 cocaine and powdered sugar.
Nice. Well, you put it the best when you said when girls go on benders, they don't eat that day and then they just go and get drunk. When guys go on benders, they go on a bender and then they eat pizza and crap all day. So at least girls seem to be smarter on this one. They realize, all right, one vice at a time. It's like there's like Fight Club, but for appies on Tuesday. First rule, don't talk about it. Second rule, one vice at a time, boys. And if this is your first night in appies, you got to have drinks. You got to have a crantini.
Well, usually what I do, I just kind of I just figure, okay, if I know I'm going to be going out on a Friday, and I know there's going to be food, I know there's going to be drinks, I'll just throw like a 24-hour fast in there. Because
Yeah.
at least then I'll have like 3,000, 3,500 calories I can put away before I start going over like the daily amount of calories.
Yeah. Oh, it's a game changer for that when you realize how many calories you eat in a day. And if you just skip a day, that's a giant buffer.
And then, like the day after you go out drinking, if you did it right, you're not going to want food all that much.
Mm-hmm. By did it right mean your stomach feels like it's rotting from the inside, or did it right?
Something like that.
Something.
You feel like you have Krang going on, trying to break out of there.
I like the 90s reference. I love it. Yeah. What were we talking about here? So we got about the food, the exercise. I mean, it's everything kind of comes down to it. Either making money, what is it? Money, building your looks. And this is the stuff that people are obsessive about. It's almost like, what is it? There's only 3 things to market. I can't remember if it was you telling me this or somebody else, where if you want to sell something to somebody, you either sell them on sex, money, or fear, I think it was, wasn't it? And these are the
Something
only
like
3
that.
things that obsessiveness seems to kind of circle around. People aren't obsessive about things that don't involve any of those things. I guess escapism might be another one, but that's just the fear of whatever it is you're trying to avoid, right?
Yeah, I think the escapism, especially when it comes to like video games and stuff, is just people trying to find other avenues where like the risk isn't that big.
Mm.
Like if you look at like Call of Duty, it's technically a war simulator, but you don't risk getting shot.
Yeah. Blackwater is the other war simulator. Bit different stakes. I hear you. I was thinking about this when you were saying about the addiction and good addiction and that. Let me ask you this then, or it's kind of an ask, I guess. If somebody's addicted to something, like if you're the foodies being a bad thing, have them make a non-foodie decision and see how they react. I think that's going to be the big difference. Same as you said with video game addiction. Well, take away the game, get rid of the game. What happens? Does the guy have a withdrawal, or does he just move on to something else? And I think that's the key difference. Like, how easily can you let go of something?
Because you also have to kind of account, like the French have great words for this because they have a gourmet and they have a gourmand.
Mm-hmm.
And a gourmet is someone who likes fine food.
Right.
A gourmand is someone who likes fine food and a fuck ton of it.
Fat gourmets, I get you. Quick.
So you can be a gourmet and not totally trash your health. You can hard to be a gourmand and don't.
Fair enough. Speaking of gourmet, Vicks inhalers in the 60s had speed. How interesting. My dad always had one. Thanks, Mark, for the $5 super chat. I actually wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I'm pretty sure it is. Actually, I'm going to look it up now while we're talking about this.
Well, if you start to go back like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, like I would say almost generation looks back at what their parents did and we're like, what the fuck was wrong with these people? Like when my parents were like teenagers and in their 20s, everyone smoked. Everyone was eating like a high-fat diet. Everyone was drinking a fuck ton of coffee. And nobody ever went to the gym.
Yeah,
because the gym
jogging was like a novelty back then, even.
Well, like the gym didn't become a thing until like pumping iron in sometime in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to keep in mind that, like, what would the market be for a population that mostly did physical labor? It's like, yeah, I just got off the assembly line lifting heavy shit all day. What do I want to do? I'm going to go to the gym and lift more heavy shit.
No, you got a good point. The gym doesn't exist unless we have an easy life.
Yeah, it's like I'm just thinking, like, when you're on a farm or a ranch and you have to go and switch all the posts and do fencing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ask a guy who's been doing fencing all day if you want to go hiking.
Dude, go fuck yourself. I was just thinking hauling irrigation lines. You've never done hard labor until you go to bed sore and you wake up sore. That's when you know you're an actual, like when you actually have manual labor. I hate that feeling and I never want to go back. Never. Every hobby farmist around, I look at you like you're an idiot. What are you thinking? No, it's going to be fun. It's not fun. Shut up. Dude, you're tapping into some like repressed childhood anger and resentment right now. I don't even know with that stupid fence posting thing.
Well, I just think it's kind of interesting that like the things that like our grandparents would be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? for doing that. We're like, oh, this is good for you. And the things our parents and grandparents were like, oh, this is good for you. We were like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Ours is definitely going to be the sugar stuff, guaranteed. The Ritalin, probably. Wonder what else are the things that people are going to look back on and think we're just idiots for even doing.
Ritalin, penicillin. I'm thinking, well, over a prescription of penicillin.
Okay.
And I think you're probably going to get the hit at something with like the current finger fucking between state and commerce. I think you're probably going to get down to that. And I think universal voting is going to become an issue at some point.
Oh, so
I know it's very.
I agree with you, by the way, with your idea of merit-based voting.
Well, it's just like I know it's very Starship Troopery. Like I actually mentioned that on Twitter, and some dude was like, at least when Heinlein did it, they put it inside a good story.
That's actually very clever. I'm surprised one of your followers said that to you.
Yeah, I actually have a reasonable, like, I have a subset of my followers who are actually very intelligent.
Yeah.
And I have a subset of followers who really should be on Reddit instead of Twitter.
More words is smarter. Trust me.
Well, it's like, I always found that, like, how obsessive compulsive are you? If someone makes something that's pretty obviously a joke, or like it's either a hyperbole or a joke, and you spend like a whole Twitter thread talking about why that position is stupid.
Hashtag owned.
And that's kind of like and that's almost like the worst obsessive compulsive there is, because like if you spend like 3 hours of your day writing a long ass Twitter thread and ranting at someone who doesn't know you exist, that has to be like the definition of a waste of your time.
Oh, 100%.
And I take a lot of enjoyment when someone does that, either on Reddit or on Twitter or something.
Right.
To just respond with like half a sentence.
Oh, dude, you're turning it into like a Tinder game where the guy sends this huge paragraph of text and you just send a K back. Yeah, cool.
Yes. I just think that's like the ultimate fuck you in that situation, because you're not even trying to deal with the arguments. You're just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Too long, didn't read. Dude, I've done that on when I was on Reddit, and I would see how long I can get the other guy sending paragraphs of text. It's amazing how long people will go on for. Half a sentence response to it. Well, yeah, but did you think about this? I don't know. Sure, if I buy it. What? You're such a blah, 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 blah. And I'm just realizing I've taken 2 hours of this guy's time while I'm sitting on the toilet. What have you done with your lives?
But it's kind of interesting, though. It's the same thing with like if you have someone who's obsessive compulsive with working out, just tell them that you're working out more and that they're slacking, and see how far you can get them to dial it up.
Oh, you're brutal, man. Here, your joints don't need that lubrication in your joints. Keep lifting.
Or like some guys like, I just fasted for 24 hours. Yeah, about 72 hours into a week-long fast, and just see if you can get them to fast for a week.
Oh, the one-upmanship thing. I think that's why people hate that everybody always one-ups each other in conversations. It's because it's basically belittling your accomplishments. But having said that, doing it for funsies on some guy who's obsessive about something, I mean, you're doing him a favor too. If he eventually burns out, he kind of realizes, why am I letting some idiot on the internet give me a Reddit K and then have me, devote my life to something?
Well, I actually had like one of my like old ass tweets popped up about that earlier. Let's see if this one actually, one of my best tweets like last week that took off was like 9 out of 10 guys who say they're dating a stripper are dating a stripper who works Wednesdays at noon. Most people won't get this.
I wasn't there. I was there for the chicken wings. They have the best food in town. The male strip club equivalent of I'm doing this to get myself through medical school. Doctors in training and guys who are chicken wing aficionados, guys. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with the boobs or paying them or anything like that.
Yeah, the one I was actually looking for was this one. Like, if someone throws out some advice or a joke on social media and it drives you nuts, before grabbing the pitchforks and torches, ask yourself, why does some random person on social media's post have so much power over me? And I think that's kind of the drive of the compulsion, because at least in reality, you have that check line. Like if the guy tells you, yeah, I can bench 300 and the dude has arms the size of, cotton swabs, at least then okay, he's full of shit.
Yeah.
But online, people can fake a lot of things. And like one of the biggest things I noticed, I thought about is, how heavy like Brad Pitt was when he did Fight Club?
Wasn't he like 170 or something thin like that?
Yeah, he was really, really thin, but he looked ripped.
Yeah.
And just imagine what you can do if you have kind of that kind of physique, but you get the right kind of pictures and you use a fuck ton of fake weights.
Oh, you'd look like Troy, like Brad Pitt and Troy.
And that's going to drive like the obsessive compulsive guy nuts, because if he's legit doing the lifting and the other guy's just faking it, then he's going to burn himself out. Same thing with I think I don't mind people who use steroids.
Mm-hmm.
What I take the most issue with are people who use steroids and claim to be natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And
from
it's
a
usually,
marketing perspective.
That's the thing I'm wondering too. So we've kind of developed TRT as a way to say steroids without sounding like schemy and illegal. TRT is like the clinical version of it. It's like medicinal weed.
Yeah.
But why not just go that route? Like, I don't get what... I know there's the whole argument about cheating. Is it cheating? I'm like, I don't think it's cheating. I'm with you. I'm kind of ambivalent towards it. It's a tool. Use it or don't use it. But don't tell me that somehow a body that's natty versus a body that's on TRT is going to be any better. The girl that's blowing them that night's not going to care. Nobody's going to care. Well, all the health benefits. And then I think back to, those arguments the PowerPoint MGTOW types make as to why they're not able to attract women, but it's because they don't want to. It's not because they can't. And it just has that post hoc rationalization vibe to it, where it's just, I have a feeling and I need to find as many facts that back this up as possible. That's the whole thing I get from the steroid industry. And yeah, I'm lumping in steroids and MGTOW incels together. I don't care. Sue me.
Well, the thing is, I don't care if people are on TR. I just think that if you're doing any kind of workout related stuff, and you're using your own physique as the marketing tool, then you should be open. Yeah, I'm on TRT. I'm taking growth hormone. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I use ephedrine when I'm cutting. Just be open about all of it. So people can be like, okay, if I'm 80% of that guy, but I'm natural and I'm not using any of this shit, that's good enough. Just to have a realistic image. It's the same thing when Donald Trump says he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay, do we really believe that? Because if you start to look at the books, everyone can say they're like, let's say you own like some nickel and dime company, right?
Right.
Technically, a company is worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that some idiot is willing to pay you like a 25 multiple on whatever your revenue is now. Odds are that person is not going to show up. Odds are you're going to get between 2 and 6 times annual revenue or sales, depending a little bit on industry, depending a little bit about the market
bubble, all that stuff. Yeah.
But is it realistic to say that, yeah, I'm a billionaire because some dude could show up with $1 billion and not a lot of sense and offer you like $1 billion for that company?
So are you making reference to like his real estate in that example? Because I know that was where Forbes did a thing where they tracked down, like, he's not worth $8 billion. He's only worth 3. But the big portion of that was because he owned so many properties in New York. It was just the property value alone was in the billions.
Yeah, I'm just referencing, all those things, because if you look at if you start to look at market values and someone who has a huge stock portfolio, for instance, they can drop like a lot of money in market value just of one bad day at the stock exchange.
Yeah.
Same thing with property values is that, okay, in a good market, you can assume you get this. In a bad market, you get that, and you might not be able to sell it. Then you have, how much money is owed on these and what are the overall obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's kind of sketchy to call yourself a millionaire unless you have like $1 million liquid that you can just show up with a suitcase or two.
That's what I was thinking, because I was like, if I just sit in this property market for another couple years, I'm going to accidentally become a millionaire myself. But that's not because of anything I did. That's just because Toronto is importing so many rich people that property is just skyrocketing right now. So does that really count as me being a millionaire? And with investing too, right? Do you say if you invest $1 million, are you a millionaire? Or if you invest 100,000 and the stock's bumped up to $1 million, are you a millionaire? And I agree. It's one of those things where, like, you can't call yourself a billionaire if you have $1,000,000,001. It's got to be like a buffer where even if something tanks, oh yeah, I'm still a billionaire, even though I just lost 30% net wealth. But the kind of guy who has like a billion doesn't brag about being a billionaire. It's the guy who has 999 million. He's the one that brags about being a billionaire. So it's almost like the rule of thumb is anytime somebody's bragging about how awesome they are at something, the one truism you can take is that they absolutely suck at it or are just so close to being competent that they're compensating. And I've yet to see an example of it not being true.
It's actually very good. I've never thought about that particular thing, but it's Bill Maher had a good joke. Like, if you have to tell people you have a big dick, you don't.
Well, it's the same as chicks. Like, I was thinking about this. The one chapter from my book, when girls say, I'm not going to sleep with you, right? Or we're not sleeping together, right? And then as a guy, all that is like, why would she say that? Most guys just take it at its surface going, it's okay. I wouldn't want to sleep with you anyway. And you're just a bitch or ruin the date. But then you realize that tells you the girl's mind. She was thinking about having sex. She wanted to have sex, but she doesn't want to be a slut. So she says this line, basically telling you, I don't want to be a slut. So when some guy, it's the same thing for a guy. If he tells you he's a millionaire, well, then he wants you to, all he was doing was thinking about how much money he has. And then did he build up a thing to call him a millionaire? And he wants you to believe he's a millionaire because there's some worth attached to it. But the one thing he's not trying to tell you by saying he's a millionaire is that I have $1 million. Because if a guy who has $1 million is like, if I tell, like, why would you tell somebody you have money? That's like walking around the neighborhood in a dark alleyway, flipping bills. You're just asking to have somebody take it from you. That's why most rich people are like quiet. They just wear t-shirts, jeans, $20,000 watches that nobody else recognizes.
Well, I think that was the interesting thing because someone actually did like a study on like the average American millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very nice. Like most of them live in the same town they grew up and they own some kind of business. They live in a fairly average house. It's nice, but not like over nice. They have a normal car. Like they may have like a pickup of some car. It's like the top line model of it, but it's not like one of those really recognizable pricey ones.
Yeah. $200 suits I heard too, usually.
Yeah, 200-300, nothing excessive, but good enough to be sort of nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I just get to the point where if someone tells you how much money they have, they're marketing it and they're using it as a proxy for something.
Yeah. What are they trying to sell you right now? Yeah. What are they trying to sell you right now? Either they're trying to sell you on their ego. They're trying to sell you on the need for validation. They're trying to sell you on you getting $1 million too, as long as you do what they did to get there. But then you got to ask, why would you sell me a course on how to be a millionaire instead of just using that yourself to become a 2 millionaire?
Well, we actually had that discussion on Twitter when you were gone. Like, why would someone sell their guaranteed 600% return trading Forex thing on Twitter when they could just be trading Forex?
Yeah. Milk that thing for all it's worth. Wasn't that like the grift procedure? Milk it for all it's worth, and then when it's no longer valuable, sell it as a course? That's being generous, by the way, saying it actually does work as a money-making scheme.
Does seem smart, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart, but that's the same thing. A lot of guys are fairly red-pilled with money, and they're trying to sell you on it, but what they're actually doing is just enriching themselves, but they're not providing value. And that's, I think that's where like the grifter angle comes from, is that they're not doing the very basic tenet of business, provide value to your customer in return for, whatever it's worth, whatever the market will bear. And that's essentially it. And they're kind of bypassing that first part.
The biggest problem is people who buy into it, they're going to go obsessive compulsive with it. And when they don't see those returns, they're going to keep doubling down and doubling down and doubling down, digging themselves further in the hole.
Oh, I agree. That's why, like, I'm not going to mention any names, but you see people that I know for a fact scamming. Not even scamming to the point that that's just, parasitical. I mean, scamming to the point that there's probably an authority that's paying attention to this. And yet the people that buy into it are actually more loyal to it than if they had actually gotten returns. It's like that drip feed. Like, where the girl will sleep with you on the first date, but then she holds it off waiting for a ring in that. And then the guy keeps doubling down and doubling down. It's like a gambling thing. They have to pay out once every like 3 months just so you're constantly hooked. And for the other, 6 months, you're just spending every dollar you have on from your kid's college fund on it. It's literally gambling.
It's a fantastic business model, though.
Yeah. Fantastic, I guess. Not sustainable. I make a case for that as like tactically being alpha, and I'm gonna use alpha here as a proxy for the making money. Yeah, that's great, and it makes money. How often though do people ride off in the sunset with that money, as opposed to an arrest or a bankruptcy or something else that kind of prevents you from enjoying it in a sustainable way? Though, and that's something I don't know the answer to.
No, and I think that's kind of the danger. I think that's kind of the downside of obsessive compulsive, is that either it does what I was doing in the morning when I was getting dressed, and it drives you to inaction because you're so obsessed about minute details, you kind of forgot where you're going with it.
Right.
Or it drives you in a self-destructive direction where you think it's going to pay out, but never does. So you end up investing way too much in it. And then once that disillusionment hits you, you start posting on PUA hate and shit.
Start taking a drive in the Hollywood Hills after you do a Facebook manifesto or YouTube manifesto. Not mentioning any names in particular. No, I agree. It makes you, it's like,
Roger that.
Nicely done. Nicely done. That's the thing I'm thinking too. It's remember that saying, I think it's Lincoln, I don't know, the fool and his money are soon parted, or there's another, like there's none-ending quotes about guys are basically easy to gullible, or easy marks and gullible, and there's a nonstop amount of them. And I think back to, because you were talking about like aristocracy, I think for a bit there too, like how 3 generations, you can have a family, a wealthy family, completely piss it all away, not from any fault of their own, just from technological landscapes or whatever. I think a big mechanism on this is that there's enough people that have this quality that it's impossible to maintain family wealth for that long without some kind of like government intervention, which is like,
well, you do have
like royalty, basically.
Well, you do have some people who've been able to pull it off. But if you look at what they've been doing, at least that's obvious to the outside, is that they have very strong structures for it.
Yeah, strong structures. I noticed too, there's always like somebody running it, the family, like a dictatorship, to the point where like the kids can't even make decisions because he doesn't want any of them screwing this up.
Yeah, and it's like this amazing meme I saw. Like if it wasn't for Fred Trump's money, these people would be absolute suckers.
I like that Fred Trump's making his way back in the news. I don't know anything about him other than he was just Daddy Trump. Was he good at what he did?
Yeah, he was a very good developer. He mostly made his money in like mid-level real estate, but he was very good at that. You can always get into the ethics of things, but I don't like to mix business and ethics. Like, you're always going to have to squeeze a little bit here and there. Like, there's that line between if it's not criminal, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
That's why you got shit like the Cadbury Code in the UK, where they're like, yeah, these aren't regulations, but please please follow.
Yeah, like you follow them if you can. It signals going above and beyond. Like when you hear people for developments that build just to code, and they tend to be shoddily built versus guys who build above code, which it costs more. I think they called him on that, where because he's such a germaphobe, his HVAC systems in his buildings are like top notch, and he spends extra on it. It sends a signal to the market, but it's not a requirement, and you can't rely on other people doing that. Of course, if they do that, they're going to probably market the hell out of it.
Yeah, but I do think that's a kind of a good thing, though, because I do kind of like it when you get something that you can see that someone put quality into. And yeah. I think that's like a difference maker, because like you can always tell like the guy who put a lot of work into making his content look good versus making the content good.
Wow, this fancy website has spinning skull GIF animations. There's no content on it, but yeah, every GeoCities site from 1998.
Yeah, the reason why MySpace went to shit.
Yeah, I will say though, that's not always true. Sometimes good enough is good enough too. Like I know when a lot of things that I buy, it's mostly, clothing and that. I'm not going to be obsessive about, I want proper French seams on this shirt before I buy it and pay twice as much for it, when I know in like a year, the cotton's going to pill away anyway. So in that case, the extra quality is almost like a bad signal. So you really have to be selective about where you decide to put your extra quality into it. Some
Yeah,
things just aren't
naturally.
built for it.
And you can't buy everything in top quality either. It's not necessary. Like I always had that discussion with like plates and glasses and shit.
Yep.
Like, why would you pay $25, $30 a plate and then cry blood when you break it?
Well, like what was the rule with clothes? It was like every second item is cheap. Like expensive expensive shirt, or expensive suit, cheap shirt, expensive tie, cheap belt, or cheap socks, expensive shoes. I think that was how we're like, so it's like every second item. I think I probably screwed up that thing though, but it was the same thing. You can't focus on everything being perfect. So you just focus on the things that matter.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And I think kind of the compulsive side of that is not being able to make that differentiation between what matters and doesn't matter.
That's a really smart take. I like that. So a lack of discernment, which kind of makes sense too. Those guys who approach hundreds of girls don't get any better at it because they're just trying to rack through the numbers. They're not actually paying attention to what went well and what went wrong, and they're not calibrating.
Yeah, or they're not like being able to weigh things in a good way. Like you always weigh things, and whether you're doing investment or you're doing buying clothes or making food or whatever, right, you always kind of weigh things on degree of importance. Like you can get away with using like cheap olive oil if you're heating it up. Mm-hmm. If you're dressing a salad with it, you probably want the expensive oil. Right. If you're cooking with wine, you can get away with cheap wine. If you're serving it to drink, you may want a better one.
Yeah, wild turkey and mixed drinks, good scotch, and just skipping scotches.
So you kind of need that discernment, and I think with a lot of especially with pickup, a lot of different people have weighed different things. So you kind of get a mismatch, and you don't have anyone saying, "Well, this is very important. This is less important." Like I had that discussion with Troy about physiques here when I was not with him last. And if your physique looks good enough in clothes, I've never had a girl be like, the shirt came off, there was no six pack, and like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Oh yeah, she's invested by then. 100% agree.
So you need that physique to look good in clothes. Even with clothes, it doesn't need to be expensive as long as it looks good and doesn't look like a clown suit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or working out for that matter. If you're working out because you want to be more attractive and you want to get more girls, you have to keep in mind that the girls are the outcome here, not having a 700-pound deadlift.
Or if you can't golf, buying $1,000 in ping gear is not going to help you. Just buy the Canadian Tire set and wait until your game is good enough to where those clubs make a difference. But I think what it is it's missing a sense of purpose, maybe even values. Because if you don't have a sense of purpose and somebody tells you about pickup, for example, you're just going to completely obsess about pickup as a thing. Like it's dad 2.0. Everything's about dad 2.0, I'm finding, with these obsessive things. If you're obsessive about making money online, the hustler lifestyle is your dad 2.0, your identity. That's what you're looking to for all of your advice. And because you don't have an overarching set of values or even a goal or a direction, there's nothing to anchor you. So you have no way of discerning. So if you want to obsess about pickup, but you're not paying attention to, what's working, what's not working, how do you even know what to be discerning over? Because you have no end state, no aspirational model. I'm not even sure how to exactly word that, but there's nothing that anchors you to reality. So it's literally you make up your reality as you go. And in most guys' cases, with any of these things, they just tend to obsess about the details. As long as I'm doing what hustler Twitter does, then I'm hustling. Meanwhile, you're not making any money. You've bought $200 of services for $100 worth of revenue, and you're wasting your time.
Yeah, kind of made me flash back to this girl I knew who had a full-size professional kitchen put in her apartment.
Right?
Didn't know how to cook. Used the oven to store shoes.
That's hilarious.
But having that kitchen made every guy think, well, no one's going to put like $100,000 kitchen in their place unless they're one hell of a cook. Well, you can buy the image.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, there's no way this guy just rented the Lamborghini if he's taking a picture by it. He must own it.
Yeah, or maybe he just went to a car show and had pictures taken of him with a bunch of other people's cars.
Yeah. Oh, dude, my brother did that in Vegas once. It was hilarious. He just had his keys for whatever his rental car was, stood beside like a Ferrari as if he was putting his key into the thing and got a picture for that. I was like, he had like this ultra serious face on. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And so
Why
every
would you
time he'd
like
go
to
to
hear me?
Vegas, he would do another one of those.
Okay, I know weird things. Why would you love to hear me talk about racing a girl and how not to turn her into a hoe? Like, when do you think I have any skills when it comes to racing kids?
Wait, what the? Who's asking this?
Some dude named Beauty Asks Beast.
What the
Or
hell?
some chick, I'm guessing.
I'd love to hear Tarl about raising a girl and how not to turn her into a thought. What a weird question. Why would you ask either of us or him? Like, Carl, do you want to speculate on something that takes 18 years to do?
I just want to say, go talk to Rolo or Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, guys with actual daughters. That might work.
I'm still kind of hoping if I have kids, they don't turn out to be daughters.
Yeah.
Not on that like China-India thing, more on the whole level that seems like a pain in the ass.
I think everything's a pain in the ass. My mom, she had 5 kids, 3 girls, 2 boys. And she's like, you guys, you were easy because you always loved me, but you destroyed everything. And then for the girls, it was always like they were a constant state of anger and frustration. So it's really about, do you like replacing things or do you like paying for therapy? I guess. That's my understanding of it anyway.
Well, it's easier to just buy cheap shit, and then it's not expensive to replace.
Make a makeshift wrestling ring out in the lawn. I don't want to see you guys back till dinner. Go. Here's some plastic shields you can club each other over the head with. Which was what we did. We used to fight over the belt. We'd have like a He-Man playset. So I had the He-Man shield and he would have the Skeletor shield, and we'd crack each other on the head. And the first one to run inside lost the belt. My brother has the belt now, but now he's like 35, so we can't fight for it anymore, which is annoying. Plus, he got an ACL and MCL damage, so I don't think I can give him a leg drop right now. I'll probably put him into surgery.
Well, that's a good thing, though, because like from now on, you know that if your brother acts up, just throw him, do a chop block, and he's down for the count.
Got to start getting more into the AEW thing.
Just like get to one of those old school Bret Hart things where he's putting on like the sharpshooter across like the ring post.
Oh yeah, dude, I miss Bret Hart. He was awesome. At the time, it's weird. He was never my favorite wrestler, but he's like always been my 3rd favorite wrestler. He never went up. He never went down. He was always just like, bam. And I don't know why, but like over time, I've come to appreciate that more. Even though he's wearing pink spandex.
I think my favorite with Bret Hart is that story when him and the British Bulldog were doing like a tag team match in London.
Oh.
And the Bulldog showed up completely wasted on crack. And Bret Hart had to basically carry him all the way through that match. And if you look at the match, you wouldn't think that Bulldog was like completely out of it to the point where he couldn't even speak.
That's funny. I didn't know there was a second one. My story was the one where he got mad at Vince McMahon over the Owen Hart thing, and he ended up punching him over his desk as he left. That's my favorite Bret Hart story, but I think that's everybody's favorite Bret Hart story. Man, I miss those days. I wish they.
I kind of miss like that's kind of why I like the AEW thing though, because it kind of has that feel to it.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, Brian's got rocking the mullet right now, so he's fully into it.
I just think that's fun. That's kind of our obsessive compulsive thing, wrestling from the 90s.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing as like 80s action movies for me. It's that lack of irony. It's just completely self-unaware, unapologetic. Yeah, he's the ultimate warrior, and yeah, he's wearing tassels and he's got the face paint. He talks about demons in hell, and it's like, no, he's that. And Hulk Hogan, he's America. He's McDonald's with an American flag and a shotgun, and just eat your vegetables and do your vitamins, and none of this like winking to the audience crap. It was just, nope. Sergeant Slaughter is really gonna fight the Iranian dictator in the ring. You're like, yeah, just as little. It's like you can escape. It's like, yeah, today I'm gonna believe this stuff, and then people call you like a redneck. Meanwhile, they're watching Harry Potter wearing the fucking robes. I'm like, dudes,
Well, I
pick a
think that's
better
a
role
good
model.
thing. Well, I think that's an interesting take on it because that's the Harry Potter obsessives are one of the more interesting people. And then, like,
It's a
they're
clever choice
obsessed
of words.
with Harry Potter. They have like Harry Potter tramp stamps. They want to be called Hermione during sex. You know, all this crap. And then J.K. Rowling makes like one statement that's could be construed as being somewhat transphobic. By the way, I hate the way that they're using phobic for everything now.
I know. It doesn't mean dislike. It doesn't mean mean to. It means like a literal fear of.
Yeah, phobia is like an excessive fear. And I just think it's the wrong word. But back on point here, like if you're that obsessed and all it takes is like your favorite person making like one off-color comment, what do I need to say to get rid of all the spurgs from my Twitter feed?
Dude, there's nothing to it. That's the problem. Is they're not obsessive. They're obsessive, but they're not obsessive in that way where you can trigger them to get out of there. Because every bit of attention is good attention. I'm slowly coming to terms with this.
I think everyone has been around like the Soyosphere for like 5 or 6 or 7 years, have met like that lifer. Like, I'm not sure, did you ever watch that movie, Bigger, Stronger, Faster? Like the documentary about steroids?
Sounds familiar. I think I might have, but it's been a while.
Because they had that scene with like that one dude out there. I think it was in like his mid to late 40s. He had like one movie role back in like the 80s in some Stallone or Schwarzenegger movie. He was living out of his van, shooting up steroids, working out at Gold's.
I have seen that. Yeah, he basically, his life was just like Arnie, minus any success.
Yeah, and he was like, well, you know, you never know, man. One day you're in here training at Gold's. Next day you're up there and you're a movie star. It could still happen, man. Whereas like the guy who's like, he was in a good band in high school and now he's in his late 30s still waiting to make it with his garage band. And everyone knows those kind of figures in the manosphere because you have some people who've been kind of sticking around for years and years and years. They don't really make content. They're
really just kind of there.
Yeah, they don't put things into practice. They're just kind of hanging around because they want to be in that club where it could happen.
I wonder, would I lump Roosh into that? Because what was the last thing Roosh has done other than get attention?
I would say though, Roosh is kind of like his own kind of case because, well, I'm just saying because like the main thing that sets Roosh apart, he actually did put things into practice and he did actually create some very good content with Bang and Daybang.
True. Actually, you know what? I guess, yeah, you make a good point there. It'd be like Tesla. How Tesla did a whole bunch of really cool shit, but then the last like 15, 20 years of his life was like of nothing of worth was made out of it. I think they found that out when they went to his place to like confiscate all his stuff and did like some hearings for the military to see what was anything in there useful. And they're like, yeah, the last 20 years, he's basically just been fucking around.
Yeah, that would be kind of my take on that, but it's more with the guys who they hang around. They don't put anything into practice. You always see them when something's being debated or discussed, and they're like, "Well, you know, Rollo in this article from like 1943 said this," and it's like Rollo's like, "Even I don't remember writing that article."
Wow, out articled Rollo. That's an impressive feat.
And you always get those guys, and that kind of makes me wonder, like, why are they still hanging around? What are they looking to get out of it? Is it just that they're here because they want to be here? Is it that they are just looking for like a surrogate friendship group? And if so, like, why wouldn't they try to implement some of it to make it better? Because there's nothing sadder than a guy who's been around this place. Like I liked Quincy. I'm not sure if he's still around.
Yeah, he is. I think he hasn't been banned yet. Every time he gets banned, he sends me his new account to make sure I follow.
But at least like the dude was like, he was still a bigger dude, and you know, Quincy's Quincy, but at least he was putting things into practice. He was going with it, and he was kind of seeing, I'm a work in progress. It's getting better. Yeah. But if you've like been around for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years and it's never gets better,
then what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is weird because I've found, Like I'm only technically, I guess technically I've only been here 2 years. Other than that, it was just kind of hobby stuff. Maybe not even 2 years, but it's not hard to accomplish something. It's consistent. It's not like an adrenaline rush. Like I'll use that book as an example because you've gotten 2 books out. So it's not a flex because Carl can throw that right back in my face. But writing a book, it wasn't hard. It's just I had to write it and then I had to edit it and then I had to release it and then I had to fix it. But it was like there's a certain set of steps to it. I didn't get into the identity of being an author because I had no frame of reference. I don't know what being an author even means. So I don't focus on, I don't know what guys who say that they're aspiring authors focus on, but I don't know what it is. Like, have you ever talked to a guy who's never finished a book, but he talks about authorship like he's an author?
Oh yeah. I've run into I'm still working on some of that stuff because I don't really consider myself an author, even though I have 2 books out and a third on the way.
Yeah,
I'm going to reserve that until I have my first fiction stuff out there.
Fair enough. Well, actually, I'd say so. Here's the thing that got me: Jackass. Remember we talked about that earlier? Do you remember they always have that disclaimer at the beginning? These guys are professionals, and so don't do this at home.
Yeah.
And I remember having an argument with my girl. I'm like, these guys aren't professionals. She goes, well, they're getting paid for it. So technically they are. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So yeah, the Jackass guys, no training, but they are professionals. So I would say, yeah, you are an author because you've sold a book.
Well, that's actually not true, though. A lot of them had training.
Really? What kind of training?
Yeah, Steve-O, he went to a Ringling Brothers Clown College.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what about Wee Man? Oh, I guess, of course, Wee Man did. Of course, he's like Oompa Loompa.
Yeah, but Wee Man and Bam are both professional skaters. And if it's one thing professional skaters are good at, it's taking a fall correctly.
I was going to say that a lot of that stuff wasn't just taking a fall. The one where they got tased. I don't know if that's anything a skater, but that's the point, right? It's like they're not professional stuntmen that you would think of. There's no like accreditation to be, have something shoved into your urethra, but they got paid for it. So yeah, they are professionals at the end of the day.
I think it comes back to like the obsession with being able to play a certain identity versus the obsession with getting the results to actually own that identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some identities,
100%.
And a lot of things differ in that regard. Like we talked about that in an earlier show, like Stolen Valor.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing. You have a guy who actually went into the military versus a guy who wants everyone to call him Sarge.
Well, I actually did I have an article on this. That was my Don Draper one where I talk about identities that way, where everybody sees Don Draper and it's a bit of an old reference, but they always want to be him. He's the cool guy. The girls always want him and the guys want to be him, and he makes good money and he looks super hot. But the character was meant to be like a narcissistic asshole. He wasn't even Don. Don Draper was Dick Whitman, some guy who worked in a whorehouse as a kid. So when people would call him out in the movie, you're actually Dick Whitman, he'd break down, start crying and all that stuff. And I'm like, why would you try to be that guy when you could easily just be John Hamm? John Hamm is an actor who plays a character who's pretending to be a character. And if you look at John Hamm and say, you're not Don Draper, he would look at you like you got 3 fucking heads. He goes, yeah, it's a job, you idiot. Meanwhile, still the same suit, still the same cool look. Girls want him, guys want to be him. If you check it, he literally divorced his wife the year that Mad Men fucking got him super successful. So there,
same thing with Chris Pratt though.
Yeah,
like he was married to Anna Faris for years until he got in shape and got really successful, and then instant divorce.
Yep. And right there, that's exactly it. Now you could look at and a lot of guys will look at their characters. I want to be just like this guy when I grow up. Like even that guy is not that guy. The actual guy that guy is that guy. And he's the one that doesn't get in a big tiff every time you call him out on it because he doesn't care. It's just a means to an end. John
Wayne was really named Marion.
Yeah. Of course, then he also ate a bunch of that nuclear sand, but whatever. Can't judge a guy too hard.
I do kind of think, like, when we've talked about this for like 108 minutes now, I do kind of come around to the fact that, like, the oblivious to obsessive compulsive is an identity play, whereas oblivious to obsessive is a change of identity play.
Ooh. You just described borderline personality disorder on that latter one.
Well, that wasn't the intent of it. The latter one was more like, that's actually the guy who sees that, okay, I've just become aware that my current state in life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
In order to improve my lot in life, I have to become obsessive about the things that can fix my current states. Versus the obsessive compulsive, where it's more borderline personality disorder, that you're not preoccupied with doing the things that gets you access to the club that has that identity. It's more about looking like you belong to that club without actually having any of the merits to be part of it.
Yeah. It's giant fakery.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
someone who hangs out at Everest Base Camp versus someone who actually climbs the damn mountain.
What did you call them? Ring rats? Except for they're dudes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I guess in the chat, if you guys don't know, Carl was talking about ring rats. It's the girls that hang around professional wrestlers just to sleep around. And like every space kind of has them. But that's ideally that was just girls hanging around in a male space that they wanted to be a part of and get the top tier men from as like a niche. But as opposed to being a guy who does that, I'm sure everybody who's worked out in like an MMA gym has always seen that one guy who loves to talk about MMA, but he never went to tournaments. He never spars. He just sits there and kind of hangs out. Pays money for that.
Yeah, and it's fair enough that people do it. The biggest problems becomes when the guy positions himself as an authority, because I think that's like kind of one of our major issues in this space is that someone buys a course from someone who has a make money online course.
Yeah.
And they buy a site and they start trying to do that same thing.
Yeah.
And
everybody's chasing
the other
like
guy.
6-year-olds playing soccer together. Just chase the ball.
Or the guy who just finds the manosphere randomly, reads like 4 Rollo articles, and then he starts to write his own shit.
Those are the guys that try to red pill their friends, by the way. And that's why, if you guys don't know, this is why Carl and I say never try to red pill your friends. Because I've never seen anybody who has their shit together who has the need to proselytize. It's always the guy who just learned it yesterday. He's like the 9-year-old talking about the dinosaur lesson he learned today in school. It's annoying.
Yeah,
Stop doing it.
And there's also, if you have to educate your friends rather than be their prophet, that's more about waiting for the right moment and then slipping the information in a way that's palatable without all the fucking jargon.
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes up, and most of the time they're not going to take it anyway. But once that thing that you said was going to happen actually happens, it gives it more weight and they can learn from it. So many guys have seen that where they see their brother. It's always their brother is going to be married to a chick that's no good for him. They try to talk him out of it, just alienates the brother instead of just like, look, these things are going to happen, man. I'm here for you when it happens. And then sure enough, they'll happen. And then the guy's like, okay, you were right. That's when it kind of sinks in.
It's kind of like this random shit with, I remember like a fresh MBA grad, like 25 years old or something, went in to do a consulting gig and he was doing a presentation for some guy in nuclear power. Okay. And he opened with, if you look at the nuclear industry and the 5 forces, and the leader of the company he was talking to was like, dude, there's only one force in this fucking industry, the Regulatory Commission. That's the only thing that matters. The market doesn't matter. The industry doesn't matter. All that matters is what the government thinks about nuclear power.
Huh. Makes sense.
And it's kind of a perfect example of someone taking a model that would fly well in 98% of industries, and he takes that model into the wrong place. And I've never kind of gotten over how funny it is to watch like fresh MBA grads stand there and tell someone with 40 years experience in an industry that they're doing everything wrong.
Trust me, I have my black belt, my 6 Sigma black belt. I know what I'm talking about. Oh, thanks, sir.
And to link that back to it, it's kind of the obvious thing is to people who are familiar with things, the fakery becomes immediately obvious. If it's a guy with stolen valor, a military guy will immediately see the things that are wrong with the medals or the uniform or the jargon. Right. A guy who's been to prison will automatically recognize who's been there and who had just learned the jargon. A guy who's been around this space a long time will be able to kind of catch up when someone is being fake with things, either because the results are way too good, they're doing things that may seem intuitive, but most of the game is counterintuitive. So the best thing I can say is just kind of, if you catch yourself, just if you focus on the results, you can be obsessive. If you're focused on the process and just being part of something, you're obsessive compulsive, and you don't want to be that. And if you catch yourself learning jargon before understanding why the jargon exists, you're obviously in the wrong space.
I think that's a perfect note to leave us on. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Red Morning. The Rule Zero is going to be on John's channel. There's a link down there if you want to check it out. Carl's got Gendernomics. I got Fuck Files. You know where to find us. I don't feel like doing the brand. You're fine with us skipping the whole, like, where can you find us speech there, Carl?
Sorry, what was that?
You're fine with us skipping the whole where to find us for more speech?
Yeah.
All right, good. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Oh, yeah, shit. I forget. God. Not intuitive on a stupid thing. There. I don't like